Hi guys, Asmo here, and today I wanted to talk about the potential league starters for the 3.19 Lake of Kalandra based on the manifesto. We still have to wait for the patch notes and a bunch of this stuff is still subject to change, but I wanted to start this discussion early to help you guys figure out very early on what you can practice, which builds are going to be viable and which builds are going to be a big bait. There's tons of misconceptions circling around, so I wanted to a little bit clear out the air and make sure that you understand which of the builds are actually being overhyped and which of the builds are actually something that you should probably not be trying. So let's start with the obvious thing first, which is the SEISMIC Trap Sabo. As far as we know right now in the manifesto, the nerf is not sufficient to dethrone SEISMIC Trap from being the best league starter. So basically look out for the patch notes. If there is a nerf directly to SEISMIC Trap, then don't play it. If there is no nerf to SEISMIC Trap, then go ahead and play it, it's still gonna be the best. But very likely, I'm like 90% sure it's going to be slapped really hard in the patch notes as well, because basically that's the main thing from the community feedback that is coming at GGG. Please directly nerf SEISMIC Trap, so I think they're actually going to do it. So SEISMIC Trap most likely is not going to be playable. However, if it somehow dodges the patch notes, then it's still going to be the best starter. But moving on to something that is going to be most likely untouched, that's going to be SPECTRAL HELIX. There is tons of viable SPECTRAL HELIX builds. You can transition from SPECTRAL HELIX to something like Lightning Strike, which also seems to not be on the radar of GGG. So I definitely would recommend starting with HELIX into Lightning Strike. You can do it on a Berserker, you can do it on a Raider, maybe on the new Trickster. We'll see what the rework brings. You can do it on a bunch of you can do it on a champion, for example, depending on the playstyle and what you want to prioritize, right? Whether it's the speed, whether it's the whether you want to prioritize having an easy time playing the character, or whether you want to be more tanky and so on. So SPECTRAL HELIX, practicing that right now will probably pay off. It's a good thing to practice. It's a very strong leveling skill that can transition into so many different things. So I definitely think this is one of the top league starters that is going to be played. The next thing that is going to be pretty popular probably is the return of the Chaos Dot. I already made a Chaos Dot Trickster and Occultist this league, so like an ED Contagion Trickster. Trickster is just a very fast ascendancy. It had really good time with that. The extra duration helps a lot. And Occultist is really good if you want to farm content such as Expedition, because you need Explode for that, and Occultist brings enough Explode to really carry those encounters. I personally would recommend starting as an Occultist, going for the regular Chaos Dot leveling. You can check out my YouTube channel. I will also link these videos that I mentioned in the description, because a lot of these builds I actually have guides for. So you can check out the leveling guide as well as the full build guide for the Soulrend build that I used to basically make hundreds of exalts farming Expedition. Expedition is a very good early league mechanic to just make a bunch of currency, whether through running the logbooks or just farming the logbooks and selling them. But if you want to juice it to the max and you're gonna have an easy time just popping a bunch of remnants and not struggling with killing the monsters, a dot build with Explode is what you need. Do not play anything else if you wanna specifically farm that type of Expedition encounter, because it's gonna feel miserable. The monsters are gonna be immune to stuff. They're gonna have a ton of block and they're gonna regenerate their life. It's gonna be really hard. But with something like a Corrupting Fever Gladiator or a Soulrend Occultist, you're getting that dot which bypasses the block, and then you're getting an Explode which chains between these super dense packs and clears it in a second. So you can check out that video, it's going to be in the description. Soulrend is going to be very nice for farming early on. It's a pretty solid starter. It's going to be able to kill like the initial bosses. Something like a Shaper and the bosses of those difficulties are going to be easy to do. Something that's going to be a little bit harder, like Uber bosses, probably going to have a very hard time doing, and you'd have to transition into something else. This is definitely not a boss killer. However, it can kill the easier bosses. So the non-Uber bosses you can kill with this, but for the Ubers, you'd have to play something else. One thing that I want to mention as well, do not get baited. Do not get baited by Spellslinger Soulrend, okay? First of all, the Spellslinger buff that we're getting does not affect Soulrend. It only affects the hit. It doesn't affect the damage over time. So it doesn't matter for that. So the Spellslinger is not getting buffed for this build. Secondly, it's a complete meme, but by this point. The original idea of the Soulrend was, first of all, you are able to skip the mana cost, which you cannot anymore. And secondly, Spellslinger allows you to cast multiple spells at once, which is great for combos like Ele Contagion. And because you play Ele Contagion with this combo and you still have some reservation, you can fit in Soulrend there. Now the reservation is going to be nerfed. You're not going to be able to fit all three, or at least not without major sacrifice and major investment. And then every single time you throw your Spellslinger out, you still have to pay the full cost of Soulrend because of the trigger changes. So it's a complete waste to use the Spellslinger for Soulrend. It's an absolute waste. You're disabling yourself from running defensive auras, you're making your character too squishy, and you're not even adding more damage, you actually are reducing the damage that you're dealing. So it's a very, very bad idea. Do not play Soulrend with Spellslinger. It's just an old meme that doesn't work anymore, okay? Soulrend with Self-Cast, on the other hand, it's pretty good. You can easily get to like 5-6 million DPS without that much investment, and you can do most of the content in the game, and the clear feels amazing. So that's it. The next thing that's going to be very viable, but a lot of people think it's completely dead, is minions. Minions build are going to be very fucking powerful. There are going to be so many options for minion builds right now, and people who like creating minion builds are gonna have so much fun this league. This is honestly the minion league. When I read the patch notes, I was so excited for the minions. I was like, holy shit, this is the minion league. We're gonna be able to do so many things. Absolution, SRS, Holy Relic, so many things. And then I go on Reddit and like everybody's like, ha ha ha, minions dead. Like, I'm like, what the fuck? Minions are gonna be so powerful. It's just, you're just gonna have to play different builds, right? You cannot play the same build you played in the last league, well, with some exceptions, but you're gonna have to adapt and you're gonna be able to make such a strong build. But initially everybody panicked. Even like Gazi was reading the patch notes and almost crying reading what was happening to the minions. But then it took him a day and then he realized, wait, actually we can do this and we can do that, and there's like minions are gonna be still super powerful. And now the title of his stream is Minions S tier. So clearly minions are gonna be very, very good. The minions that I would recommend playing are going to be, for example, SRS. Very straightforward, very easy to level with. You can level it as with minion instability or without. Minion instability is going to be very powerful with SRS or with golems as well, because golems are going to have they have so many changes to their life, it's actually confusing, but they're going to have high enough life so that you're going to be able to scale it to the level of minion instability doing actually a lot of damage, and the ignites being very powerful. At least I think so. The ignites from the minions should apply to the minion instability, so it's going to be very, very strong. Then we've got Absolution. Absolution is going to be a very good starter. It has been buffed. It was already super powerful early on, so it's a great league starter. And then we've got things like Holy Relic. Holy Relic as well as Herald of Purity have been buffed. So any type of a hybrid summoner that uses attacks as well, and you can use attacks in a very clever way to, for example, use you can use Cyclone, and you can use Cast Wall Channeling for a bunch of different spells that are going to help you support the damage of your minions, and at the same time you can have life gain on hit through using a Claw, and at the same time you can have something like a Holy Relic just being triggered and doing massive amount of damage. Holy Relic is a minion that has the highest base damage in the game, and with the buff it's going to be a great inclusion into many minion builds. And on top of that, the approach of using like a Holy Relic and Herald of Purity and then some other minions as well, having like these multiple minion setups in your build is going to be more powerful, because now other classes, not only Necromancer, will be able to use that, because the global modifier of +2 to level of all minion skill gems is now going to be available to every single ascendancy through the helmet modifier, which is going to give you +2. And on top of that, you're going to be able to get corruptions on all your different gear pieces. So you're going to be able to have extra corruption on helmet, on the body armor, on the gloves, and on the boots. You're going to be able to boost the levels of your other like auxiliary skills that are going to be able to support your total build. And everybody knows why leveling with minions is so broken. It's simply because you can use 4 links and have a full-on setup in every one of them, and just use 4 links doing damage at the exact same time, which is why minion leveling is still going to be insanely powerful. If you set up your leveling character with minions in a correct way, you're still going to be one-shotting all the bosses. You're going to be doing ridiculous damage, even though the patch notes say, oh, while leveling you're gonna have a little bit less damage. It doesn't really matter. Minions are absolutely one of the strongest, if not the strongest, like SSF starters that there are. The next recommendation for a league starter is going to be something that I think most people, like almost everybody, missed this. People are crying that the routine balance pass on a selection of underperforming skills is a complete meme, but actually it is very significant, and it has buffs to skills that are going to become the meta. And one of those skills is going to be Crackling Lance. I'm 100% convinced Crackling Lance is going to be a meta skill. If you want to play some kind of a self-caster build, Crackling Lance is going to be the best skill. Probably played as an Inquisitor, but there are other options. You could convert it, you could play as an Occultist. You could even play it as a Raider, you could play it as a Scion, you can play it as an Elementalist, you can play it as a Guardian. There are so many options, but Inquisitor I think is the most straightforward, simplest option, and that's what I would recommend. Inquisitor Crackling Lance. I'm probably going to be making a guide for a Crackling Lance League starter as an Inquisitor. Crackling Lance, for those of you who don't know, is a spell that has probably the highest single target damage of any spell, because it has built-in intensity, which basically is a multiplier to your damage. As you're standing and casting on a boss, you're just doing more and more damage, and with enough cast speed this happens very quickly, and the damage multiplication is nearly instant, and you're just doing tons of damage. I've played a lot of builds which were able to utilize a bunch of different lightning skills, whether I played with like Soul Thirst or I played with my Gigatanky Guardian. I had an opportunity to just put any lightning spell and it would work. And every single time I checked, doesn't matter what build it was, Crackling Lance was always the highest DPS. The only drawback of Crackling Lance, as far as I'm concerned, was that whenever you were clearing, it would always have some stragglers. You would always hit a pack and there was like a one monster on one side and a couple monsters of the other side that wouldn't die because the beam was not wide enough. But now the change addresses exactly that. We get plus to the beam, we get +2 to the width of the beam, which is 20% more, and then we get 50% more per intensity. So instead of 2, we get 3 per intensity. So with 4 intensity, there's going to be 6 extra width on the beam, which has a base of 12, right? So it's a very, very big buff that is going to make sure that you're actually hitting the entire pack, and in combination with something like Impulsa Explode and Herald damage, you're going to have an actual good clear while keeping the massive damage that Crackling Lance provides you. So that's going to be a really exciting starter, and if you're like a less experienced player, I think I would look out for that build, because it's going to be like a very simple, straightforward build that's just going to be able to do everything in the game. Another starter that I would recommend, that is something that a lot of people have real fun with, even though it's a melee build. For all of you melee guys, I would recommend a Bone Shatter Slayer. Bone Shatter Slayer has great clear, it's pretty quick, it has nice survivability through the leech and overleech, and Bone Shatter is just a very strong skill. Maybe with the Juggernaut rework, we could also play it as a Juggernaut. We'll see how the Juggernaut rework will go. But Bone Shatter, I don't have that much experience with it, but I know it to be a very solid starter, and I definitely recommend it. And there's a couple of more solid starters that I don't have that much experience with, but I think they're going to be very good. One is Maw of Mischief. A lot of people have been theory crafting and making tons of different Maw of Mischief builds, so you can look into that if you're interested. That's a good potential starter as well. And then RF is still going to be good. According to Pox, who's basically the expert on RF that everybody comes to whenever they have a question about RF, what he's saying is that RF is going to have basically the exact same clear speed, the exact same mapping experience, but what's going to be a little bit worse is going to be single target, which basically your bosses are going to take a little bit longer to kill, like maybe 20% longer to kill. You're still going to be able to do all of the same content, but it's going to be a little bit slower when it comes to killing the bosses, and that's basically it. So still a pretty solid build, very easy playstyle. So if you're interested in RF, definitely something you can still start the league with. And another thing, the last option that I'm going to talk about is something that is going to be played personally by me. It's going to be Ele Bows into MFing. I feel like this is a very strong league start, depending of course on the league mechanic. I might change, but my initial idea was to go with Ele Bows, just like I did last league. Go with either Rain of Arrows Raider or with Lightning Arrow Deadeye, whichever one you want to play. And then you can do Endless Heist in the beginning of the league for a few hours, get like 5 to 10 exalts very quickly, pick up some good gear, and then go into the maps and then farm like T10 maps with essences and harvest. You can get harvest crafts that affect all the items when you get to item level 76, I guess. And you can make tons of currency there, and then just get your headhunter, transition into KB, and just start MFing like crazy and running whatever you want, having like an absolutely most powerful MF mapping character you possibly can. And that's going to be a very, very strong start if you want to focus on just making currency early on. And I think that should be most people's focus in the early league. And that's basically it. There's also a ton of different builds that are much less explored, that we don't know if they're going to be very, very strong, but potentially could be really good because they received some indirect buffs, and also the nerfs do not affect them. So one example of that, if you want to look into that, would be, for example, Cobra Lash Assassin. Cobra Lash Assassin with Nightblade not being nerfed and with Critical Strike Affliction support being buffed is receiving basically a pretty massive buff to the damage over time multiplier. And that's going to be something that can be potentially have like 800, 900 damage over time multiplier very easily on like a very cheap setup, and that can do a ton of damage. So tons of league starters. Let me know, guys, after reading the manifesto, what are your ideas for the league starters? Is there something that I missed here that flew under my radar that would be a really, really good league starter, bearing, of course, potential changes in the patch notes? And thank you so much for watching. See you next time.